Okay, good morning, everybody. Today's date is 7/11/2021. My name is Leslie Williams. I live in San Diego, California, within the community of La Jolla. And this is a remote neural monitoring CIA hyper game theory video series video number 8A. And so when you watch this video through the YouTube channel that you're seeing this video through, I'm sorry, when you as you're in the YouTube channel that you're seeing this video through, what you want to do is you want to look for the remaining videos that are dedicated to this video series by looking for the same title. Each sequential video will have a number at the end of it, so you'll know which one is a continuation of the next. This is video number 8A, and there probably will be at least a 8B, maybe even a 8C, so just trust me. Now, any videos that are part of this series that are not labeled yet on YouTube, all you got to do is when you go into the videos, and you're going to hear me say that this very shortly within the video, you're going to hear me say this is a remote neural monitoring CIA hyper game theory video, so you'll know that you're in one of the videos dedicated to this particular series. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the subject matter. Let me just do something here real fast so I can get the noise of it out of the way. Okay, now the reason why I decided to make this video is because, and I'm going to dive right into it too, so if you don't know anything about gang stalking, or if you don't know anything about CIA hyper game theory, just trust me, write down my descriptions, research them extensively, stay with the video series, also research the videos that are dedicated to this YouTube channel, and research everything exposed and described. Now, I decided to make this video, part of the CIA hyper game theory within gang stalking criminal expeditions is to put the gang stalking victim into a corralled, boxed in, fenced in, in order to keep the victim in a boxed in, corralled program that is specifically designed for them, even though the program of gang stalking is 99% of the time perpetrated in the same general way against all victims, because it's a program. Make no mistake about, and the resultant motives are very, very, very identical. Okay, now one of the ways, and brain entrainment is one of the extreme main sub motives connected to this crime. Now, this video is not going to expand on a lot of details pertaining to brain entrainment. Just hear me out. What it's going to do is it's going to help you see how this crime in itself, when it's perpetrated through its methodologies, its tactics and techniques, and other identified perpetrations of this crime, you're going to be able to have a more in-depth understanding of this one particular aspect of what they've been doing to me. And you can assume that the CIA hyper game theory is the fence that keeps the victims in order to be able to achieve its goals. So hear me out. Now, so with this, when a gang stalking victim is put in this program, they're only allowed a certain measure of functionality within their lives, because in order to achieve brain entrainment, the victim has to be put in a program in a way to where the brain entrainment can be achieved without any inside influences, or without any outside influences, without any outside obstacles that will interfere with the perpetration of the techniques and methods and tactics that contribute to the creation of the brain entrainment. So let me give you just a fast example so you can see with your mind's eye really fast. Of metaphorical examples, so you can get an immediate understanding of what I mean by a victim being corralled within the program itself, and then within the additional structures that are put within the program against the victim, so that they can use the parameters within that structure that they got the victim trapped in to achieve the brain entrainment. Because remember, this crime cannot have any outside influences or obstacles, okay, that would interrupt their ability to effectively perpetrate their methodologies in order to achieve it. So here's the example. Say if you got a husband and a wife, and they're in a home, and 4 or 5 burglars break in, and they immediately put the wife and husband in the living room. And then each one of the burglars will play their already predetermined roles pertaining to not just how to break into the home, but what to do once they are in it. And so what they'll do is they'll take the husband and wife and place them in the living room, and then they'll take one or two men, and they will be dedicated to making sure that the husband, the couple, stay in the living room. They won't be allowed to get up. They won't be allowed to talk to each other. They won't be allowed to try to do anything to distract or disrupt, okay, the rhythm and flow of how they're operating within the house. Now, the other two or three individuals one will probably be dedicated to security, meaning that keep an eye on anybody approaching the house or what might be going on immediately outside of the house, and then the other two will be dedicated to ransacking the house. So what you got here is you got 4 or 5 people who set out to achieve a goal, and each one plays a role in making so that the goal can be achieved with the least amount of obstacles intruding upon the environment that they're in, that they're using to achieve the motive. So the couple is not allowed to get up, they're not allowed to talk, they're not allowed to move, they're not allowed to try and disrupt any aspect of what the perpetrators are doing. They're not allowed to talk to each other or to the perpetrators. They're told to just shut up, sit down, and don't move at all. Well, that is an excellent metaphorical example of what gang stalking victims are put in pertaining to the hypergame theory. So I'm going to expand on that now for a little bit. And I'm going to share some of my personal experiences, and I'm going to start talking fast so I can get as much details in as humanly possible. In order to achieve creating neurally entrained looped, L-O-O-P-E-D, in order to create neurally entrained looped, neural entrained pathways and neural networks, they got to be able to force the brain by psychologically driving the brain into specific types of thinking responses, emotion responses, brain states like fear, even paranoia. And make no mistake about it, that's all part of this crime: fear injection and psychological intimidation about everything and anything that they can force that upon the victim's mind by and through the applied methods that they use is done on a daily basis in one form or another. Because you got to remember, when they can force a victim into a thinking response, when they can force the victim into a emotional response based on any technique and method used, what they're doing is that the techniques and methods is what creates the entrainment. So the auditorium visual brain entrainment that's perpetrated through gang stalking crimes in CIA hypergame theory, so when it applies the technique, they got specific motives to drive that victim into a certain thinking response, a certain emotional response, a certain brain state, even brain states of to excite brain states of extreme anger, and then the emotions that kind of act as the vehicle for the processing of that anger. And we're talking about every type of brain state you can think of, all the way from elation all the way down to extreme depression. Because you can, whether you suffer from clinical depression or not, you can experience what is known as situational depression, which can be affected upon a human being's mind by and through their situational circumstances, by and through any victimizations they may be enduring, by and through any type of hostile environment they may be forced to live in or through. Hostile relationships, whether they be at the acquaintance level, friendship level, family level, neighborhood level, whatever. Now, these satanic rats who host this crime, and they're nothing but literal mass murdering animals, oh, absolutely, make no mistake about it. Well, they're actually a lot more than that, but at the end of the day, they're nothing but mass murdering genocidal maniacs. This crime is being intentionally affected upon hundreds of thousands of Americans right now in real time on any and all dates you watch this video. Literally, tens of thousands of those victims are online reporting it daily on all online platforms. So when you drive a gang stalking victim into a specific thinking response based on what the victim is forced to see and or hear, because remember, gang stalking crimes intentionally use what is known as anchors. These anchors are designed where they anchor something in the victim's mind through their perceptions, what they see and or hear, so that a negative correlation and association can be achieved so that the thinking response can be produced. And I've talked about this in many other videos, so let me just kind of segue into an example of this. What they've been doing with me ever since they started the open gang stalking of me in 2002 in Michigan is employing a bunch of different, employing a bunch of different techniques. That's some bicyclists off the road there that we're talking in the background. What they've been doing with me is employing a bunch of different techniques in order to drive those thinking and emotion responses. So how do you think that they can do that? Well, first of all, this crime made me homeless. As a direct result of this crime making me homeless, this crime knows, the host and manager of it knows, that every human being, every creature on this planet literally has to sleep. So they know you're going to be forced to go somewhere to sleep. This crime will also massively psychologically torment you and harass you, including in very specific, very specific personalized ways, because they take a psychological profile of each victim, so they'll know what type of best psychological operation to run on that victim in order to produce the aforementioned types of responses. So when this crime creates the homelessness of a victim, they know that part of the program that they're going to continue to perpetrate against that victim is to put that victim intentionally in a survival mode. All human beings on this planet have innate limbic system survival brain functions. Now, that's one of the main things that these satanic mass murdering animals intentionally try to activate on a daily basis in order to create brain train pathways to dissociated states, to the limbic system, to the right hemisphere of the brain, and then eventually over to the left. Now, so in order to put a victim into a survival mode, in order to try and create brain train pathways to the limbic system, which is the area of the brain dedicated to self-preservation, they got to perpetrate psychological mechanics in order to induce what is known as fear injection, hypervigilance, anxiety, a nonstop sense of victimization over any and all perpetrated methodologies. And so I think you got a general idea what I'm aiming about, intentionally exciting the brain, that aspect of the brain, so that when the fear is excited, based on the self-preservation sensing that it's being threatened, the brain will start to create thinking patterns and emotions directly to that area of the brain, because the limbic system is literally nudging the unconscious, subconscious, and preconscious and conscious layers to start deliberating what is threatening and what is making the brain feel threatened. And this is where the intentionally propped up props that are propped up through this crime, the intentionally perpetrated harassment, the intentionally perpetrated periodic assaults, intimidation, and so on. So when you can create and train neural pathways to the limbic system, they also want to create them to the dissociated states, which is why certain anchoring related to sensitization techniques and dark neural linguistic programming and the direct conversation method are always implemented towards the victim in this crime on a daily basis. So that the disassociation can be induced, usually through trauma, which can also occur not just through physical assaults, but also through electromagnetic weapons and ultrasonic sound, bone conduction torture, voice to skull, and much more. So the immediate goal is to create the thinking responses and emotion responses from the limbic system to the dissociated mind. And they definitely want emotions connected to it as well. So what they've been doing with me is that when they made me homeless, I'm going to basically just talk about what they've been doing in San Diego, but the great majority of what they've been doing in San Diego is identical to what they were doing to me in Michigan and what they were doing to me in Connecticut and what they attempted to do in Tennessee. So when you put a victim in a survival mode, creating situational circumstances like the homelessness, well, they already know you got to go somewhere to sleep. This crime also purposely pushes you to the point mentally to where you just want to spend most of your time alone because of the massive community-based harassment that the victim absolutely is enduring along all the routes, creatively, usually overtly, but sometimes periodically directly towards you and or your property. So again, they excite the survival mode by putting you into homelessness. And then what they'll do is start engaging in techniques to let you know they're tracking you to wooded areas where you may go to sleep at and rest at and be by yourself at. Then they'll start intentionally propping up anchors in order to let you know that they know where you got your property hidden at. Now you might say, well, why don't you go to a storage locker and put your property there? Well, just research storage lockers and gang stalking to any and all states in America to gang stalking. Because remember, this crime literally uses every single place the victim goes. Libraries, universities, bus stops, bus routes, businesses of all kinds, post offices, banks, everywhere the victim goes. Charities, churches, homeless shelters, everywhere the victim goes, the victim will be subject to one or more propped up props through this crime. And remember, this crime also perpetrates staged events. So even if you went and put your stuff in a storage locker, it will start using that business and either already existing clients that are also renting storage facilities, but they will also use perpetrators to literally rent storage facilities so that you can be set up for a staged event while you're there, coming to it while you're at it and leaving from it. So you can then be told that you are no longer welcome to rent a storage facility here. We'll even give you a refund, and you got to get your shit within a week, or we're gonna confiscate it and throw it out. So if you can imagine taking every single thing you own and trying to get it back to a wooded area within a week. Because this crime will literally do that. And then it will literally repeat it if you don't know that you're a gang stalking victim yet. And you think to yourself, okay, well, the shit that happened at this storage location is just because the guy's an asshole and these people that were also part of the event are assholes, so I'll just go to another one. They'll just repeat the same thing in another one. Literally. Okay? So I am literally forced to hide my property at wooded areas. Well, through all the different types of reported extreme sophisticated criminal surveillance connected to this crime, these little fucking wild animals, they know where you're at in real time at all times, every single second of every 24-hour period. This is no exaggeration. And there are many different types of surveillance that are used in gang stalking crimes. Remote neural monitoring, subvocal speech monitoring, remote neural monitoring eye lens implants, setting up cameras in a wooded area if the victim has used it for more than 1 or 2 nights, putting up multiple cameras at a wooded area in the general vicinity so they can see where the victim might be going from one place to another on the property. So these little filthy, and there's other types of physical surveillance as well that these psychotic rats are using. Because you got to remember, not one aspect of this crime can be achieved without criminal surveillance. And we're talking about surveillance at the criminal surveillance at the federal level. And by the way, you should research all United States intelligence agencies to gang stalking, as well as state, county, and local police, and the fusion centers in gang stalking. They're the main implicated hosts of this crime, along with several branches of the U.S. military. Okay, so then you are put in a survival mode. You're tracked to wooded areas. You hide your property. You then leave the property to go get something to eat or some water. You come back and you notice that certain physical props have been propped up right 1 inch away from where you got your property hidden at. So then you go into your property to get it out, and you discover your clothes have been slashed up with a razor blade. You discover other items missing. Okay, so then you go to another spot. And you look at that spot where you had property hidden at, and and what they'll do is they'll prop up the same type of visual anchor for you to see that they put at the second spot. And they will do this at every single spot that you hide property at. That way, they can create what is known as a visual memory anchor. This visual memory anchor, and so when you're when you're approaching your property where it's hidden at, and you're literally seeing that something's there that was not there before, that's usually completely foreign to the environment, or at least something that's part of the environment, but propped up in a way to where you know that there is no way an animal could have did it. There's no way that it could be there by happen chance. There's no way that it could be there for any other reason except for a physical person propping it up. Now, they know you're going to notice it. And that's the purpose of why they do it. It's called anchoring through association. So just research that related to the sensitization method of gang stalking. So then, say if you hide property at 15 different spots on one general area on one property. So then when you go to the first area and you see this physical prop that they prop up, like with me, they've been propping up mounds of dirt, okay, that are completely foreign to that area. Now, so then when you go into that property that they propped the mound of dirt up at, literally, so if you can imagine like a 1.5 foot high mound of dirt that's about 2.5 feet wide in all directions. propped up in a perfect pyramid shape, right 1 inch away from where you got your property hit at. Then you get into the property and you discover things slashed up, other things missing, other things destroyed. You then think to yourself, there's no way that all of these different things can be by accident. So then you go to the second and third and fourth and fifth spot and the same thing at those areas. Okay? Now, the reason why they prop up the mound of dirt is so that mound of dirt can be associated to the act that they know you're going to discover when you go into the property. So that way, when you then go to your other spots that you got property hidden at and you see those mounds of dirt either right next to where you got the property hidden at or along the trail leading up to it, directly up to it, that's their way to excite the memory reference of the first event. It's called memory anchoring. So research remote neural monitoring and memory mapping, memory stimulation. And it's also reported that remote neural monitoring will record every single thing you see and hear. Okay? So now when you have a thinking response about your experience every time you see these mounds of dirt, every time you see your property damaged, stolen, destroyed, you are then also, your brain is also creating additional visual memories of every single thing you're seeing related to this event. The property damage, the theft, and the mound of dirt. So now these things are also memory anchors. And then you have resulting emotions concerning it and resulting thinking responses. So now you got auditorial and visual entrainment being connected to things that you use for survival. So these visual images that you're seeing of the mound of dirt, your shit being stolen, your shit being damaged, your shit being slashed up, all become part of a created, visually entrained pathway that's got auditorial attachments with it because of your internal audio thought responses to the event. So now you got the beginning and creation of a neurally entrained pathway that's got visual and auditorial associations to it, based on the theme, the contents of the event, what the event was about, because the brain is going to pick everything apart related to it. And there you have the correlation to the event, to the anchors, to the thought responses, to the emotions that were experienced during the event, and to the visual imagery connected to it. And then that way, every time in the future when you approach your property, no matter where it's hidden at, no matter how many places you got to hit at, they will prop up mounds of dirt off the entrance of you entering that wooded area. They'll prop up mounds of dirt along your walking route, getting to the property that you hid. Even if it's just one mound of dirt, they know then when you see that mound of dirt, it's going to immediately stimulate that entrained pathway. Every time you see the mound of dirt, okay, when you're approaching your property, and this can mean at 40 different spots on 3 different properties, or 40 different spots on 1 property, literally. This is no exaggeration. That way, every time you see the mound of dirt, it will excite the potentiated frequency output of that entrained neural pathway and neural network. Okay, and then the brain will be forced to re-experience the memories and the associated thought responses. And since the potentiated frequency output of that visually and auditorial entrained pathway has been excited as a result of the brain seeing the mound of dirt that is used as a stimuli to excite it, the stimulation to excite it, the stimuli, at that time when the potentiated frequency output of the entrained pathway neural network fires, remote neural monitoring will identify it remotely from a distance. Remote neural monitoring your brain neurally remotely, it will identify the excitation of that potentiated frequency output connected to the entrained pathway and will latch onto it for in real-time neural hacking and neural influencing, including for any staged event that comes about as a direct result of the victim now being neurally hacked in real time, which isn't a secondary motive of the entrainment. So when the victim is forced to experience this 1,000 times, okay, you now have an extremely created, reinforced neural pathway, neurally entrained network that is nothing but a loop because the crime is identical every time the brain is forced to process it, which then also contributes to the reinforcement of the potentiated frequency output of it, because that neural pathway is never allowed to die off through inexperience. It's another reason why they continue also to prop it up, because every time the brainwave is excited, it becomes reinforced continually, which is why when you research gang stalking, you will see that victims are stating that they're being constantly bombarded with the same exact identical visual stimuli, the same exact identical auditorial stimuli, Okay, sounds, words, phrases, and so on. Because what they're doing is creating auditory and visual brain entrained looped, LOOPD, loop neural pathway, where the brain is just stuck in a constant neural identical loop. Okay? And that is just one aspect of fucking what they've been doing to me. Absolutely. See, these wild animals that perpetrate this crime, they know what they can get away with. They know how easy it is to brain train anybody to anything about anything. Absolutely. This crime will do everything and anything to capture your attention. Anything and everything to capture your attention, so that once your attention is captured, while you will simultaneously notice what is propped up that is grabbing your attention, in order to excite the thinking and emotion response, to excite the brainwave, to reinforce it as a result of it being excited, and to force the brain to re-experience what's associated to it. So imagine intentionally being made homeless, and then imagine just this aspect of this happening to you every single fucking day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, literally every day. And this is just one aspect of this crime, one thing that they do to achieve one specific type of entrainment. Absolutely. And they can create multiple anchors to one initial anchor, because they can add on to it. Like, in other words, you know how I told you they can put up mounds of dirt at 30 different spots where you got property hidden at? Well, then what they can start doing is not just putting the mound of dirt, but also putting a second object next to it that's identical at each one of these spots. So then that the object, okay, becomes associated to it. Absolutely. See, because in gang stalking crimes, hold on one second. In gang stalking crimes, they know what it takes to create entrainment. All of this that's done, everything that I just described to you, was purposely done in the specific way that it was done to achieve the motive. Okay? Absolutely. Because gang stalking, it needs to create brain entrained neural pathways in order to be able to, okay, neurally hack you every time the brain's potentiated frequency output signal of the each entrained pathway and neural network is excited. They can't let that, see, when you don't experience something, when you experience something over and over and over again, and it creates a neurally entrained pathway, if they were to stop doing this, the potentiated frequency output connected to that entrained pathway will start to die off. It will start to become dormant, okay? And so the only way that they can keep it potentiated is by and through the repeated identical stimuli being propped up. Because every time the stimuli is propped up, it excites the entrained pathway. Okay? Gang stalking will do anything and everything. It will prop up the weirdest sounds around victims. For the victim to notice. And then what the brain starts doing is it starts to auditorily start fixating on it, okay, unconsciously and consciously, without where it makes it very hard for the victim to recognize that they need to distract themselves away from what is causing the brain to fixate on a sound, word, phrase, physical gesture, physical object that's being propped up for them to endure. Because remember, the brain's limbic system is, one of its main functions is to notice anything around you concerning your personal safety. And that's why gang stalking, a huge aspect of this crime, will intentionally prop up things in the environment, especially things in the environment that are unusual to the environment, because they know you're going to recognize that to be something propped up through this crime in order to make you hypervigilant, scared, nervous. Because consider this, and then I'm going to let you go. When you're at a wooded area, this crime will intentionally let you know that they got the power to set you up for assaults, arrests, robberies, rapes. They will intentionally let you know this. Hold on one second. They will absolutely intentionally let you know this. Okay? And that assists in another aspect of the brain entrainment that I'm going to talk to you about in either remote neural monitoring, CIA hypergame theory 8B, video or 8C. Because one of the goals of, so you see, when I spoke at the beginning of this video about how they will break into a couple's home and force them to sit in the living room and force them to do all the other things that they were instructed to do, that means that a couple is being corralled into a room and not being given no options about how to get out of the fact that they're forced to be in that room, and how they're forced to do certain things and not do certain things. Do certain things like sit still and be quiet. Not do things. Don't talk to the perpetrators. Don't talk to each other. And by the way, you should extensively research the censorship of victims. So they got you. They put you. They break into your life and put you in a certain specific corralled circumstance, and then even use that circumstance as a mean for neural mental control. If you expose too much, we'll set you up for staged assault. If you expose too much, we'll set you up for staged arrest. If you expose too much, or we decide to add additional things on to create additional anchors, we'll prop up social deviants and punks and criminals to literally camp out 100 feet away from you, who are also used as provocation and intimidation about property theft. Because if you leave your tent up during the day, they know it. If they have any way of knowing where you might hide your property, because they might be able to see where you're hiding it at or retrieving property from, that's mental control, because they're controlling your fear and anxiety about your survival. This is literally the way I have been fucking living since 2002 in 4 states. Purposely, intentionally done in these intentional, specific ways. Meaning that every single thing I just described to you pertaining to what they're doing connected to the brain entrainment and using the homelessness for it and my property as well was intentionally, specifically done in this specific way, intentionally, purposely. And they got to keep repeating the same shit in order to keep the entrainment alive. Or else the potentiated frequency output connected to the entrained pathways will start to go dormant, making it harder for that entrained pathway to be stimulated whenever any prop that's connected to it is propped up, the stimuli. That's why they got to keep repeating it. So my fellow American citizens, I made this video today to inform, to expose truth. Research brain waves and auditorial and visual entrainment to gang stalking, and you'll eventually learn truth. Go to Google and type in Brian Tew, the Tew hypothesis. His last name is spelled T-E-W. Okay? Electronic harassment. You research him extensively at Google and YouTube, and also research ex-CIA scientist Dr. Robert Duncan, The Matrix Deciphered, at Google and YouTube. Everybody, thank you for listening. Today's date is July 10th, 2021. My name is Leslie Williams. I am literally at this area that you see here right now. Let's see if they prop up anybody to camp out within 2,000 feet of me before I move, on any and all dates, including today's date. Okay, within 2,000 feet of me, and that includes along all the trails coming to and leaving this property. Have a good day.